Okay, let's get started on some wit and wisdom. Now, if you remember, we're in a brand new module, and this is actually going to be our third lesson. Normally, it would only take us 3 days, but it's taking us a lot longer because we're breaking it up into smaller chunks. So we are on our third lesson, and our big question, the big question that we're trying to answer for this whole module is, how do people respond to the powerful force of the wind? Well, first, we've got to figure out, how is wind a powerful force? So that's what our whole first story is about. Figuring out how wind can be a powerful force. So in our story, Feel the Wind, you all wrote yesterday what is powerful and what is not, and why it's powerful. And you also had to give me evidence about wind from our text. So today we're going to carry that on. And we are going to actually look at Feel the Wind one more time, and we're going to try to figure out what's happening. So as we go through, we're not going to do it the normal way. I will help you with this way. So the very first thing I want you to do is I want you to think about that word. We have words on our word wall, remember? And I want you to think about the word that you could use if you were trying to describe the push and pull we are feeling in our hands. So if you put your hands together like this, what is that word called? If I push or if I pull my hands together. Do you remember that word? I hope you said force, because that's exactly what that is. That's the force. Remember, force is the physical strength that you have to push or to pull something, right? So we've talked about that word force, and we're going to try to figure out how wind has the ability to use that strength to pull and to push, okay? So now I want you to think in your brain. Everybody has seen one of those little Hot Wheel cars, right? I want you to think, do you think that is a powerful object? That Hot Wheel car, is that a powerful object? Okay, if you said yes, I want you to tell somebody why you think it is a powerful object. If you said, no way, Miss Metz, I want you to tell somebody, why is that not a powerful object? Okay, now I want you to think about a tow truck. Lots of you have seen tow trucks on the side of the road. If there's a broken down car or if there's a wreck, you've seen a tow truck. So I want you to think about that. Is a tow truck a powerful object? Now I want you to tell somebody, if you said yes it is, I want you to tell somebody why you think that. And if you said, no, Miss Metz, a tow truck isn't powerful, I want you to tell somebody why you think that. Okay, I'm going to remind you that powerful means having that ability to use force, having that ability to push and to pull. So right now I'm thinking that Hot Wheels car, it is not powerful because it really doesn't have the ability to push something or pull something. You're doing all of it, right? But a tow truck is powerful because it's got the ability to use its force to take another car to another place, right? So I believe that a tow truck is a powerful force for sure. Now, remember, our question for our story, Feel the Wind, is how is wind a powerful force? So what you're going to do is you are going to listen to our story one more time. You're going to listen to our story one more time. And after you've listened to it, then you're going to be able to do this part of our lesson. So we're going to try to figure out what's happening in Feel the Wind. And normally you're going to say, oh yeah, Miss Metz, that's easy. We know when we find out what's happening, it's the characters and the setting and the problem and the resolution. But here's the deal. Our book, Feel the Wind, does not have characters. It didn't name anybody. It doesn't have one particular place that it happens. So I'm going to tell you, this is a nonfiction book. And when we have a nonfiction book, it means we can't use character, setting, problem, and resolution. We have to figure out what the whole book is about. So I want you to think, if I had to say what that whole book is about, What is that called? Some of you are going to say wind, and that's exactly right. Wind is what the whole book is about, but really, wind is the main topic. So I want you to think, when you hear these words, main topic, you're going to think to yourself, sweet. That means what the story is about. And so lots of you have said, I think Feel the Wind is about the wind. Well, yes, that's exactly right. But as always, we have to have evidence to back that up. So what evidence do you have? So this is where our lesson is going to take us today. So I want you to think back, and I'm going to open my book and show you some of these pages. And you're going to help me figure out what the main topic is of those pages based on the evidence, okay? So we know the big topic, the whole main topic of our book is Feel the Wind. Now we've got to figure out the main topic of each of the sections of our book. And we're going to have 4 sections. We're going to do 2 today, and then we'll do 2 tomorrow, okay? So we will have 4 sections, and we're going to try to figure out what the main topic is. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read to you these first couple pages, which is going to be our first section. So listen carefully. You've already heard it again, but now you're hearing it a 3rd time, so that way your evidence really sticks in. Feel the wind. I want you to think, what are some details that you learned about the wind on these pages, okay? Here we go. Have you felt the wind blowing through your hair? Wind is moving air. Air is what we breathe. It is everywhere around us, even though we can't see it. We can't see air, and we can't really see the wind, but we can see the wind move things. Wind pushes clouds across the sky. Wind flutters the leaves of the trees and makes ripples on the lakes. You can hear the wind too. When wind blows through cracks in your house, it can sound like someone whistling. If the wind blows very hard, it can sound like a wild animal howling. You can see the wind move things, you can hear the wind, and you can feel the wind. Stand by an open window and let the breeze tickle your face. A strong gust or a light breeze. Wind is moving air. Now, I want you to think, what are some things that you learned about the wind on those pages? What are some things that you learned about the wind on those pages? I'm thinking I heard wind is moving air. Would you agree? Is wind moving air? Yes. Wind is moving air. Ooh, what's something else that you heard? Can you hear it? Yeah. Can you see it? Can you feel it? Yes. So you can hear the wind, you can see the wind, and you can feel the wind. Now, you can't really see the wind, but you can see things moving that you know the wind is out, right? So you can see, hear, and feel wind. I would agree with you on those. Okay, what else did you learn from those pages? Well, what about this? And what about this? What is the wind doing? It's blowing, but it's moving things, right? So can wind move stuff? Yes, the wind can move stuff. I love it. Wind moves things. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a look at all the evidence or all the details that we have in our first section. Wind is moving air. You can see, hear, and feel the wind, and wind moves things. Now, what do all those details have in common? What did you hear over and over and over again? What did you keep hearing over and over and over again? Okay, you heard wind. Yep. You heard wind. What else did you hear over and over and over again? That you can see it. You can see it move things. You can hear it. You heard the wind everywhere. You can see the wind move things. You can hear the wind and you feel it, right? So wind, what does it do to our senses? You have to use your senses, right? Because wind isn't something that we automatically see because it's invisible, right? So then we've got senses in there. We have to use our senses, wind and senses. Okay, so how can we make that into a sentence? Okay, yeah, wind, we use wind. So we don't use wind, we use our senses, right? So maybe on those first 4 pages, the main topic, right? What we learned from that is that you can use your senses to see, hear, and feel the wind. You use senses with the wind, right? So we're going to use our senses to see the wind, to hear the wind, and to feel the wind. So our first part, the first section that we read, has to do with using your senses. The wind is invisible, so we have to use our senses, right? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to go to the next section. And we're going to try to figure out the main topic of the next section. So we're going to listen to this part that I'm going to read to you. And your job is to help me figure out what key details we heard. Okay? So listen carefully. All right? There's the picture. So I'm going to flip the book so you can see the picture while I read. Okay? So listen carefully. All of the earth is surrounded by air. Earth and the air around it are heated by the sun. But some parts of the earth heat up more than others. In the tropical parts of the earth, near the equator, the sun's rays strike the earth directly. The air gets very hot. Near the earth's icy poles, the sun's rays strike it at a slant or a diagonal, so the air stays colder. When hot air and cold air trade places, it's making wind. Hot air is lighter than cold air. So hot air rises. People discovered this a long time ago and used hot air to make balloons float. The heated air in the balloon was lighter than the cooler air outside it. The hot, light air made the balloons float up. Okay, here's a picture of the hot air rising and the cold air coming in, and they're trading places, and so that makes wind. All right, when heated air over the earth rises up, the cooler air, which is heavier, rushes in to take its place. The moving air is called wind. Now, I want you to help me come up with some details that you heard that you learned about wind. What is something that you learned about wind? Okay, so you learned that there could be cold air and hot air, right? So cold and hot air. Okay, good job. And what about that cold and hot air? What happens? It what? Switches, right? It switches. They switch places, which makes wind. Very good. What else did we learn? What rises? Which one of those goes up? Hot or cold? Hot air rises. Very good. Hot air rises. I love it. Excellent job. What else? Okay, think about that earth. Some parts of the earth are really what? Hot, right? And some parts of the earth are really cold, right? So some places are hot on earth and some places are cold. I agree. Great. Uh-oh. Some Mets can't spell this morning. Okay. So here's some details that you learned about the wind. That cold and hot air switch places. That hot air rises. And what does cold air do? It falls. And then some places are hot and some places are cold. So now I need your help. What do all of these details have in common? What did we learn about this? We learned, think about wind. How is it made? How did we get wind? Yes, all of this has to do with that hot and cold air. And we know that when hot and cold air are moving around, it's making wind. So that's what you learned. All of this has in common that wind is made, right? Wind is made by all this hot and cold air. So we could make that into a sentence by saying, wind is made when hot and cold air switch places. So we've learned two things so far. We've learned two things. We've learned that you use your senses when you have to be around the wind, right? And then you also learned that how wind is made. It's made when hot air and cold air switch places. So maybe today, if you feel the wind, you'll know that the hot air is rising and the cold air is swooping in to take its place.